Meeting all participants.
Thank you. So, welcome everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are at the moment. You know the rules, or what we are asking for is to rename yourself if you don't have your name and surname and university stated. So please click on the three dots and rename yourself. It's easy and fast. And it's much easier if you have a question to our speakers, of course. So then, welcome everybody to our fourth EU4Energy University Week in 2024. This is the third and last day of the University Week, and today we will also have the quiz at the end of the session. We are welcoming here our implementing partner in the EU4Energy project, the Energy Community Secretariat, and the warm welcome to Ms. Marie-Therese Richter-Kunert, head of the legal unit at the Energy Community Secretariat. Please, the floor is yours to welcome our participants.
Yeah, thank you so much. Welcome from the side of the Energy Community Secretariat. I would like to start by congratulating the organizers and initiators of this digital EU4Energy Week. I think it's a very interesting initiative. When I was asked to give some welcome remarks, I was very glad to see the program, and I find it very interesting. And I have to admit, I would have loved to listen in and learn and discuss with you. But I'm just tasked to welcome you, unfortunately, on behalf of the Secretariat. So there are two parts of today's program. I've seen basically covering aspects that are very much at the forefront of what the Energy Community Secretariat is doing and is pushing for in our region. Energy efficiency, the policy behind it, and decarbonization of heating in our region. It will be given by two of our experts. From our side, this is a very important topic. You might all know the saying of, the best energy is the energy saved. And I think actually, even in the framework of the Energy Community Secretariat, we should remind ourselves of that, not only in our daily work environment as such, but in our daily work. So I'm very glad that our colleagues Borko and Mariam are presenting topics related to this. Because of the importance nowadays. Energy efficiency has been with the energy community since almost the beginning. The first energy efficiency acts have been incorporated into our legal framework in 2009. And to stay on track with the evolution of European law, we had a lot of further acts expanding our so-called acquis. So the legal basis for our contracting parties to actually follow up in harmonizing and implementing their legislation with the standards in the European Union. So this includes the so-called Energy Efficiency Directive, Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, and Energy Labeling Regulation, and all the delegated acts for specific devices, etc. Our colleague Borko Rajcevic will take you through the policy, so the basis for all of this. In the framework of the energy community, the best practices with regard to those policies. Borko has been with the energy community for a long while. He's senior energy efficiency expert at the Secretariat, and before he was energy efficiency advisor for the government of Montenegro. And he has extensive expertise in all of our contracting parties in terms of policy setting, in terms of transposing energy efficiency legislation in the different countries, and can give you a lot of examples. So thank you for taking over this part, Borko. And this will be followed by a presentation by our colleague Mariam Darkia, who is consultant at the Secretariat's Green Deal unit, and previously was chief specialist on sustainable development at the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia. And she will take you to a topic very much related, namely decarbonization of heating, which I find particularly practical because this is what you can read in the newspaper on a daily basis. I think in my perception, it all started to become very, very popular topic, if I may say so, with the unfortunate full-scale invasion of Ukraine, where all of a sudden people were considering, how should we heat our homes if anything happens? We're all used to burn, especially in the contracting parties of the energy community, to burn whatever, and in most cases fossil fuels, to heat our homes. And the perspective of that not being the ideal solution, not only because of the environment, but also because of the geopolitical developments, is maybe not the best solution. So I'm very curious of what Mariam is going to share with you, and give you also examples of how this has been done in the energy community, how the shift is happening, how even in countries that are not so well off, such shift can happen. So from my side, I wish you a very interesting afternoon, interesting presentations and a fruitful discussion, and hope to welcome you at other events and discussions that the energy community hosts together with its partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, just a small point I forgot to mention. Of course, everybody is muted as in the last 2 days. So if you have a question to our speakers, please write into the chat or raise your hand and you can be unmuted. And with this, I hand over to our first presenter, Mr. Borko Rajcevic, Senior Energy Efficiency Expert, as we heard, at the Energy Community Secretariat.
Hello, thank you very much for the invitation, and warm regards from Vienna. I will share my presentation first. Hopefully you see it in the full mode. Let me just present it. So on behalf of the Energy Community Secretariat, I'm under my presentation planning to cover this aspect of policies for enhancing energy efficiency and best practices in this area, which includes some interesting examples which will be presented in the second half of presentation. Let me start with some basic concepts, and I also remember when I just finished my studies. I have background in electrical engineering. I didn't have so much knowledge about other aspects of energy, except heavy focus on technical issues. And then when I started to work in the agency on energy efficiency policy issues, then first from this basic concept, like definitions of energy efficiency improvement, it became more clear that there is more than only technical issues. And this is also good for like a different disciplines of studying, because energy efficiency really covers energy, economics, legal part, now also a lot of smart technologies and IT. And there is a place for everybody, as also during the, I think, first day was mentioned by the colleagues during the first day. And energy efficiency is basically a ratio of useful output, and this can be performance or service or goods or energy to input of energy. And for example, when we think about these different useful outputs, performance can be thermal comfort in buildings, so keeping all rooms, either in offices or in households, on the proper temperature, or either during this winter or summer cooling season. Then as example of good service is, for example, when public transport or water supply, goods can be production of smartphones or any kind of goods. And energies can be also, different transformation of energy. Like we have, for example, here on the presentation on this slide, one example of the water supply system. So there is a lot of transformation coming from the coal, going to the thermal power plant, and then there are these different transformation steps where you can see that, for example, energy being transformed through in different transformation steps, and at the end, on the useful service, which is pumped water to the water supply company, can lose, for example, 90% of the value. And energy efficiency is important during the whole chain of this transformation. And of course, when we look at the coal as a fossil fuel and one of the dirtiest and maybe first of the priorities for decarbonization, when it's replaced also by renewables, then it comes into this interplay where energy efficiency and reduction of demand can contribute with the less renewables, you achieve same effect. So basically, energy efficiency means getting more output with equal input or even less input of energy. And also energy efficiency improvement means process of increase of energy efficiency. And this is not only through technological improvements, which are, of course, very important, but also through behavioral changes. So bringing users first aware of the importance of savings, and also performing different, measures and actions. For example, starting from the simply turning on or off lighting when it's not necessary. And there are also economic changes, and here can be really a lot of whole palette of different measures, starting, for example, from investments or subsidies in building renovation. And also we can see here example how on the building heat can be lost through different these areas of building envelope. And based on this, for example, there are specialist energy auditors who can analyze and propose different measures, and then through the good policy measures or economical measures, different segments of population or industry can be tackled, prioritized in implementation. And I borrow here also this nice like a flower visualization from IEA, and it shows just different aspects how energy efficiency, despite this most famous the energy saving or monetary saving improvements, that there are many other which, if they are put into calculation and then nicely presented, can show even more how energy efficiency is important and of benefit for different players. If we start from the top, energy efficiency is very important for either national or sometimes like on the EU level or energy community level for the achievement of energy and climate targets. And both on EU or on energy community level, we have these targets which consist of basically three elements. One is reduction of greenhouse gases target, then there is renewable energy target, and energy efficiency target. And energy efficiency target is shown by threshold primary and final energy. In 2030, currently, this is the most latest adopted targets, but the overall goal is to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. And energy efficiency is very important component of this, endeavor of current strategic, priority of EU and energy community also countries. Also, energy efficiency is very much important for energy security, and this was evident during the recent energy crisis, where just reduction of dependence on oil or on gas import can significantly improve energy security in the country. And most of the countries implemented really intensive energy efficiency measures or energy. There is another measures which are demand reduction measures, which are simply just conserving energy on a national level, so not taking so much care about the useful outcome, but just like during this critical energy crisis time, reduction of energy with some prioritization or shifting of consumption to another because times during the day or night where energy is more available. Then big benefit for energy efficiency is for economic savings. So for businesses, this means increased production and performance and profit. And for regular citizens, this means that more disposable income is available for households to invest or to spend simply on other needs. Energy efficiency is also very beneficial for local job creations. It stimulates job creation, for example, in buildings, construction industry, also manufacturing of different products or appliances, and also for the energy services like ESCOs, energy saving companies, or energy audits or consulting in this area. And what I always mention, and this is the closest to all of us, these are social benefits. So improved indoor comfort and living conditions. So we all live in buildings or spend most of the time during the day in the offices or in the buildings or households, and we can feel these social benefits on our own, from our own experience when on the country level there is a specific measures or implemented measures improving, for example, building energy efficiency. And what is also very important, especially for the countries which are members, contracting parties of the energy community, is this focus of energy efficiency on alleviation of energy poverty and enabling through energy efficiency measures more structured or systematic tackling of these issues. Or energy poverty is basically lack of access to the basic energy services. And with energy efficiency, this can be significantly improved. And in contrary, country can give, this monthly, payments to reduce somehow to help energy poor households to contribute to pay the bills. But with energy efficiency measure, it's more like a sustainable way of tackling this issue. Now, when we come to energy community is international, based on the Energy Community Treaty, which is an international treaty, and basically it is created, as Marie-Therese said, in 2000. I think it's active since 2000, officially since 2007, and energy efficiency is part of Energy Community Key since 2009. It basically it's cooperation between contracting parties, signatories of Energy Community, which currently have 6 countries from Western Balkan and Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova to implement selected acquis. And you can see here that there are different aspects related to energy. We have a key or legislation related to climate, to environment, renewable energy, also electricity and gas, market security of supply, and energy efficiency is one important component of this. Currently, we have 3 directives which are important for energy efficiency policy and legal framework. This is the directive on energy efficiency, directive on energy performance of buildings, and set of legislative acts and regulations which deal with energy labeling. So directive on energy efficiency sets this policy framework and also framework measures for energy efficiency on energy community level, and for every country it requires, for example, setting of national energy efficiency targets, so this threshold primary and final energy consumption. Also it sets the measures, for example, for obligatory energy audits in public sector. So exemplary role of the public sector is one of the areas which are also very prominent in energy efficiency areas. So public sector should really show by example, even if it is represented not so significantly in energy consumption. Public sector is the easiest sector to implement the measures, and then show other sectors how this can be done. So there is, for example, obligation 3% renovation obligation for central government buildings. Then there is obligations to also the energy efficiency should be considered in procurement legislation and practices. Also, there is obligation for energy efficiency obligation scheme where energy companies or distributors should also take part in implementation of energy efficiency measures, either by directly implementing measures or or contributing to the energy efficiency funds in the countries. A directive on energy performance of buildings is on the other side focused very much on the building sector. A building sector is usually either on the first or on the second place as a energy consumer on the end use side, and usually in energy community countries is around 40 or more than 40%. It is also closest to the citizens, and there is this intention to through specialized directive it is treated, and policy, for example, measures which this directive promotes is integrated analysis of the buildings, definition of minimum energy performance requirements, then certification of buildings, putting basically for all new or existing buildings which are renovated or sold, putting the label also from which shows energy performance or energy efficiency class of the building. Then there is obligatory inspection of heating and cooling systems. And the latest energy performance of building directive is also linked with the promotion of electromobility. And this, for example, it requires that when a building is being constructed, that on every, for example, 5 parking places, there is 1 charging points for electrical cars. Also, there is now latest trend in energy efficiency in buildings is also this smartness indicator, which shows basically how building is well connected, and also potential for energy and smart energy solutions in the building. And also energy passport is a new tool, which is a web-based passport of the building, which shows all, archive or documentation of the building, and which enables better tracking or history of building implemented measures in building, and this contributes to the future basically phased renovation for the building to achieve nearly zero emission standards. And third aspect is regulation on energy labeling and eco design, which tackles household mostly appliances, and eco design sets minimum energy performance standards for appliances on the supply side of giving obligation to manufacturers to produce energy efficient products, while labeling is providing proper information to citizens in order to have basically informed decision on when they purchase different types of appliances. I already mentioned 2030 energy and climate targets. And one more aspect is very important here. So basically since 2021 in energy community, we are trying through adoption of governance regulation and clean energy package to basically deal with energy and climate issues. So energy efficiency, renewables, the greenhouse gas reduction in integrated way. So there is first there are these 3 targets set both on energy community, and there is obligation to be set on national level. And also there is currently a process of preparation of national energy and climate plans, where all countries should basically elaborate policies and measures to achieve these targets. So there is here on the slide is shown energy community targets or cumulative targets, while each country has also, there is a basically matrix or table which shows for each country this ambition to be achieved. And first reporting on the basically progress in achievement of these targets is planned for the next year. And here is, for example, from the draft national energy and climate plans shown how basically these different dimensions of energy and climate plans are shared between, for example, there is dimension for GHG reduction, for renewables, for energy efficiency, energy security, internal energy market, and research, innovation, and competitiveness. And you can see how important also from this graph, how important energy efficiency is in represented by energy efficiency measures in EaP. So, for example, countries, when you look share of measures, this varies from 25% in Serbia to almost or to 40% in North Macedonia. So, in previous part I showed basically the main policy dimension, importance of energy efficiency, and also this strategic integrated approach in achievement of energy, first of setting and then of achievement of energy and climate targets. And now I will show you also a few best practices of energy efficiency policies. And one of them is energy labeling and eco-design, which there is a good now record of the implementation of this policy, and it's shown, for example, in EU that it contributed close to 50% in the achievement of the energy efficiency targets, but also through survey of citizens. It's also one of the most well-known and accepted measure related to energy efficiency reductions. From one side, energy labeling enables consumers to see for different product groups how efficient they are, and basically they are not obliged to finally purchase most energy efficient appliance, but they have good information, and country from the other side can support basically purchase of these products through different economic measures, like soft loans for most energy efficient appliances, or public sector can, for example, require through public procurement that only, for example, lighting or computers or whatever of the appliances is purchased with the category, for example, highest category A. What was the latest also developments in this area? Labeling, as it was developing during time, it was like adding this on the label these new levels like A+, A++, A3+, and this was confusing buyers, and then it was decided since 2021 that this label is returned to this basic level A to G. And also there is barcode, which if scanned, it brings you to the European database, which is called EPREL, and it provides more information of the concrete product. So this is energy labeling, and this goes hand in hand with eco-design. Eco-design regulation is also prepared for different products which have impact on energy consumption, and eco-design sets minimum energy performance standards for these products, and basically drives industry toward greater energy efficiency. So, for example, you may remember that there were in the, for example, lighting technology, there was this significant breakthrough with invention of LED lighting, and then at certain point, EU decided to basically ban this old incandescent lighting. So they were required, not anymore available on the market, and this was done through this eco-design regulation for energy lighting products. Also, there are new developments in related to eco-design directive. Now it will consider more and more this circularity, which is becoming, how to say, more and more also the important component of different policies. And now it's treated to this new eco designs for sustainable product regulation, which includes also whole life cycle of the product, and also other elements which are very important for also environmental aspects of this equipment which is under this directive. So in general, it drives innovation and energy saving technologies in different sectors, and I mentioned household appliances, but also it's very important for IT products, for data centers, also in industry. And on country level, for example, what is very important is that a market for this product is being monitored, and there are national authorities who do this. Usually these are inspectorates. And in energy community, for example, we have mostly when it comes to design of the policy, we have mostly cooperation, for example, with energy efficiency agencies, with ministries. But when it comes to implementation, then the other players are coming into the play, and market surveillance authorities or inspectorates are very important, and we are also trying to establish and to support them through different technical assistance programs where they can be supported first to learn about the new regulation which is adopted on the country, to, for example, create automatic checklist to support this market surveillance checks, and also to cooperate between each other, which is very important between countries, cooperation. And here you can see this, how this synergetic effect works for eco-design energy labeling. So if we look at, for example, available products on the market, so usually, yeah, it follows this like a bell curve. So there are less, inefficient and less super efficient, but there is always in the middle this, average products available. What eco design is doing, so basically it cuts this part of inefficient products from the market. And push the market toward this energy efficiency technologies, while labeling with this promotion of information and so being all market, including market participants, aware of the existence of more energy efficiency products. It pulls basically the market toward more energy efficiency products available on the market. So more offer from the producers and the distributors, and also more demand from the buyers or citizens who are also now appreciating more availability of energy efficiency products. And there are also some other labels like Eco Label or Energy Star label for IT equipment, which also further can push the market toward availability of really high efficiency products in these sectors. And here is just overview, for example, which products are under this energy labeling and eco design regulation. So there is more than 15 products, and here it's also shown which is significance, how they contributed energy savings in EU. And for example, indoor climate devices, lighting, electronics, food appliances have this more than, I would say, 2/3 of this share in energy savings achieved. And the same is planned with like contribution to the achievement of 2030 targets, with significant contribution of this type of appliances and overall energy labeling and eco design policies. So this was first example, and second example, which is now, latest concept and mechanism which is promoted on the EU and energy community level, is energy efficiency principle. So it's basically now considering energy efficiency both on energy supply and energy demand side. And whenever there is a policy making, planning or major investment decision being made, energy efficiency should be put into equation. So it should be always considered if there is possibility through energy efficiency to achieve the same effect. Application scope of the energy efficiency first principle is both relevant for energy sector and non-energy sector, for example, industry, buildings, transport, and energy supply side. And it's applied both on national, regional, local, and sectoral decision-making level. Now, with the adoption of new energy efficiency directive in 2023, there is a really strong focus on application of this principle, and basically, especially in the big investment decisions which are above 100 million for general investments, or 175 for transport infrastructure, they should always consider energy efficiency as alternative. And also there is a strong requirement that on the national level there is this monitoring capacities and institutions are designed, and also development of cost-benefit methodologies, which basically analyze and at the end enable decision makers to really decide between different options. What is also important, that this energy efficiency first principle is should be implemented by different actors, and just on this graph is shown. This graph comes also from the recommendation on energy implementation of energy efficiency first principle, how basically different public or private actors. This is the basic, differentiation, but also there are further sub categories. So, for example, how they can implement and leverage energy efficiency application. So, for example, for public sector, they should be obliged to do obligatory cost-benefit methodology analysis. Also, this is similar for regulated actors. For example, network developers or regulatory authorities can also promote and perform this cost-benefit analysis. And also, this proper remuneration regime design should be also developed by regulators in order to enable this planning and transparency and during implementation, and that energy efficiency first principle is being implemented. And then you can see, for example, for these public actors and regulated actors, that this leverage or potential for application of energy efficiency first principle is higher, while for private actors who are basically need on their own to decide. Only way to implement in general, like energy efficiency first or energy efficiency measures is through either mandatory codes, price incentives, so market design, and credible energy planning. And one, for example, option for countries who are, for example, through energy efficiency fund, implementing some new loan or new promoting some measures, then if there is public funding being provided partly or fully for implementation of certain measure, then this can be also a way to also require implementation of the energy efficiency first principle linked with the basically disbursement of the public funds. And my last slide, and I hope it should be on time. So my last slide is related to the importance of energy efficiency cooperation in the energy efficiency area. And this was really shown as a beneficial in energy community. We have energy efficiency policy coordination group, which is active in energy community since 2013. This is a group which, from one side, gathers representatives of national energy efficiency agencies, ministries, and from the other side, European Commission, Energy Community Secretariat, and what is very important is also different donors or international financial institutions which can provide basically support in implementation. And this group is focused on discussion on implementation of all these directives which are under our framework. So there is a lively discussion, and for example, when countries find that there is some common challenge, for example, renovation of building to achieve this deep renovation is one of the area, and how to tackle, for example, energy poor households, then there is immediately initiation of the support activities. And for example, latest one was also launching of the study on to tackle energy poverty through energy efficiency. And also there were some regional programs which were established to tackle energy efficiency and enable this three dimensions of importance for energy efficiency. So there is policy support, project development, and finally also enabling investments for implementation of the measures. And I would say this is all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot, Borko. And now we are ready for questions. So if you have a question, please write it into the chat or raise your hand so that we can unmute you. There's a lot of information in a short time that we have to tell. But please use this opportunity to ask questions, because also Borko was adding to the quiz his questions from his presentation. And yeah.
I also see now that there was some, obstacle on presentation during my, but I was not able to see it or remove.
I know, but we could see the content. Good. I don't see any hand raised and no questions in the chat. You have still the possibility to write into the chat, and we will check it later again. But then I would say thank you very much, Borko, and we will proceed with your colleague, Mariam Darcia, also from the energy community, and she will present about the heating and cooling topic. Mariam, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. Good evening, everyone. I suppose it shall be evening for most of you right now. Thank you, Borko, once again for setting a nice scene for me to now dive into more specifics of the heating sector, and especially how we are dealing with the decarbonization of the heating in the energy community contracting parties. Just give me a minute to share my screen. I hope it's all visible now, is it?
Yes, no, it's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So actually, it's the first time for me presenting for the younger generation, like the students from the university. So I tried a little bit to keep it simple, not to overburden you with a lot of technical details. So I will try to keep it like to the minimum technicalities during my presentation, and hopefully you will try to grasp some main concepts of how we are dealing with the decarbonization of heating in the energy community contracting parties. So just to begin with, I would love to actually kind of guide you what I'm planning to tell you about during my presentation today. So we will start with locating the heating system in the broader decarbonization agenda, so to see where it fits within the current EU policies. Then we will talk about the policy framework that we have in the energy community that regulates heating and cooling. And then we will dive into more specifics related to specifically district heating and cooling systems. And then I'll present you with some statistical data on district heating systems in energy community contracting parties. And last, we will discuss several district heating projects that are already in place or are in the feasibility study phase in the contracting parties. So, and just for a bit clearance, sometimes I use abbreviations during my presentations, and we are usually referring to the contracting parties as CPs shortly, and others I think you might be already familiar with. So ED is basically Energy Efficiency Directive, and the RED II for Renewables Directive, and then we have DH, DHC, and the agency for heating and cooling. I think it's more general one, so should not be that much difficult. So okay, let's start. So first thing, when we talk about now positioning the heating sector within the broader decarbonization agenda of the European Union, there are actually the numbers that come to my mind. So if we start with some statistical data, in the European Union, heating and cooling in buildings and industries, for instance, represents almost 40% of the EU's total energy consumption. So it's a bit less than half of the total energy consumption that goes for the heating and cooling sector. And from a very first look at it, it might be okay. But then actually, when you look at another number, which says how the energy is actually generated for the heating and cooling sector, then it becomes a really urgent matter to take care of if we really aim to reach those energy and climate targets that the EU has set for 2030 and then later for the 2050 climate neutrality. So basically, today 75% of the heating in the EU is still produced from fossil fuels, such as natural gas, oil, etc. So it's really a major problem, and that's why probably within all of the European Union's current policies on energy and climate and in general on decarbonization, heating takes quite a substantial part in them. So we can start, for instance, by the European Green Deal, which actually aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 55% for 2030. And if we look at the European Green Deal, then we see that there are like several aspects related to the heating sector and heating and cooling. So one is building renovation, as it starts a new wave kind of renovation in the European Union, and one of the biggest impacts of the building renovation is actually reducing the energy consumption from heating and cooling and making these systems more energy efficient. As Bork already talked much about this. And then another part is the renewable heating and cooling, which means shift transition to the renewable energy sources for heating and cooling, such as heat pumps and geothermal, solar thermal, biomass, sustainable biomass, biofuels, etc. And there is also a target for increasing the shares of renewables in heating and cooling set. So amongst the general targets for renewables, there are like, specific sector specific targets, and there is one actually for heating and cooling as well. I will talk about it a bit later. After the Green Deal, we can also look at the Fit for 55 package, which is basically the legislative package of different acquis from the European Union that are determined to achieve the goals set by the Green Deal. There we have like basic three documents, acquis, such as, for instance, Energy Efficiency Directive, as already mentioned, Renewable Energy Directive, and then we also have EU emissions trading system, which currently does not apply to the heating sector, but it's planned that it will be in force from 2027. And then we can also take a look, for instance, at the REPowerEU package, which came into force since Russia's full-scale invasion started in Ukraine. And the plan here was from the European Union to reduce their dependency on Russian natural gas basically to reduce gas consumption by 30%. Also in relation to heating and cooling, there was some specific targets in the REPowerEU, and the European Union aims with the REPowerEU to double the deployment of heat pumps, for instance, by 2026, and then install an additional 10 million units by 2030. So this shows how critical part of reducing fossil fuel use in heating is in REPowerEU. And then also the statistical data shows that if these are fully implemented under the REPowerEU, then the targets for the heating sector only could reduce natural gas demand by equivalent to 2/3 of Russia's gas exports to Europe before the war in Ukraine. So basically, if these 10 million and then before that other amount of heat pumps are really deployed and all these measures are taken with regard to the heating, then it means that it will reduce the demand for the gas by 2/3 of what was the total Russian export to Europe before the war started in Ukraine. Okay, now moving to the, basically, let's discuss a bit in details what we mean behind the heat. And to give a bit of a clarification why I'm mostly focused on heating today is that actually it's more advanced on the agenda in the contracting parties than the cooling part, and the more policies are in place, and the cooling is still a bit kind of a marginal one. I would say not only in the contracting parties, but overall in the EU as well. Because, for instance, with relation to heat, we have district heating systems in place in most of the contracting parties, etc. So it's kind of a really more advanced area than the cooling at the moment. So when we are talking about the heat applications, so basically the biggest application is the high temperature heat for industrial processes, and almost all of the industries use the heat in their manufacturing processes, will be it like chemical, metal, food processing, etc. And they use it for processes like drying, smelting, forging, etc. So the basic source of heat application is industrial processes. And then we have space heating, so which basically means the space heating in just residential and commercial buildings that we are using. Then the third part, water heating, which is also the just hot water provided for domestic as well as then commercial and some industrial applications. And the last we have cooking. Cooking. And I would also mention that actually, even though it's not given here and it's a relatively small share, we also use heat in agriculture, and not only for the greenhouses, but also, for instance, the drying processes or heating the soil purposes. Okay, moving to the next slide. I hope it's not becoming too boring for you now, because Borko also talked a lot about the Energy Efficiency Directive, but it's kind of these are the main pillars of the regulatory and policy aspects that the energy community has in place. So just to quickly also kind of remind you that how the acquis in energy community function. So we are basically adopting, our ministerial council adopts the transposes the acquis that are applicable in the European Union, and then it usually happens within the different time frame. So we are for instance 3 years late maybe to the current EU processes, but then our contracting parties are obliged to transpose the directives and acquis that our ministerial council approved. So we have in the Energy Community Acquis Renewables Directive as well, Energy Efficiency Directive, and then we have governance regulation, which basically sets the structure and obliges, in our case, contracting parties to draft their national integrated energy and climate plans, which is kind of the main guidance document through the energy and climate transition in each country. Okay, to dive a bit into the specifics of the Renewables Directive and what it says about the heating and cooling, in general, the most important aspect is that, to start with, we have the overall renewable target, and then this overall target, as I already mentioned, is divided into sectoral targets, for instance, for electricity, for transport, and then for heating and cooling. And what the directive mandates for the heating and cooling sector is that the share of renewable energy in heating and cooling shall increase by an indicative of 1.3 percentage points at an annual average, which starts from the 2020. So this basically means that if, for instance, the contracting party in 2020 has the share of renewables in its heating and cooling sector at, for instance, 30%, then in 10 years' time, until 2030, it shall increase annually by 1.3. So in 10 years, it will make like 13%. Well, there are some limitations there. For instance, the number can be reduced to 1.1% if the contracting parties are not using waste heat in the heating and cooling sector, and we will talk about the waste heat a bit later. Also, it's important to say that this provision and the directive allows for the variability in year-to-year progress. And as long as the total target for 2030 is met within the specified period, it doesn't matter if you increase, for instance, in 1 year 1.5 and then another year, I don't know, like 0.5. The main idea is that you reach the target for 2030. Moving forward, now to talk a bit about the governance regulation and NECPs. So basically here, as I already mentioned, the idea is to have the kind of overarching document where you have all the policies, measures, the financing challenges identified, also like the regional cooperation identified to reach the set climate and energy targets that the contracting parties have. And basically, when it comes to the heating and cooling, as it's probably obvious, they are included in two parts of the NECPs. So it's divided in 5 main parts. So we have decarbonization, which is then subdivided into 2 parts, renewables and then GHG emissions. Then we have second energy efficiency, security of supply, internal energy market, and this security of supply and the internal energy market also combines like gas as well as electricity, and then we have research and innovation. So the heating and cooling part is largely incorporated into the renewables part and the energy efficiency part. And for instance, here in the renewables part in NECPs, the contracting parties are obliged to actually calculate these targets for 2030 that we talked about in the previous slide. And once they have set the target in their national energy and climate plans, they also should set up the dedicated policies and measures that will demonstrate how the contracting party is aiming to reach this target, so that we make sure that it's not only the target left on the paper, but there are actually some measures planned that will lead to the actual implementation, and we will have this share of renewables and heating and cooling as we set for 2030. And then for energy efficiency as well, if the clauses that are mandated by the energy efficiency directive, such as the comprehensive assessment, etc., and the application of heat pumps, which should be encouraged, then there should be defined some practical measures in NECPs, which will actually lead to the implementation. So the principle is the same. And also, actually, now I have noticed that I missed it, because in research and innovation also, research and innovation usually kind of encompasses all the dimensions of energy, like when there is some need for, like feasibility studies or further research to come up with better solutions or technologies, or then like some even maybe regulatory, different regulatory approaches to some problems that we have nowadays. And also heating and cooling is quite well integrated into the research and innovation part. So now I actually aim to move a bit towards district heating and cooling systems, and kind of bringing it to the more, how to say, a specific area. And I think why I chose it, because it's quite interesting in our contracting parties, the distribution of this district heating networks, and the challenges, the current projects, etc. So I hope that it will be interesting for you too. But the first I will start, and the same thing, the policy, this overarching framework is same here, the Renewables Directive, Energy Efficiency Directive, and ECPs. So just I will maybe start a bit with an explanation. So district heating and cooling is sometimes, for instance, in Georgia, it was usually mixed up with the central heating. So district heating does not, usually the word itself explains itself, it's a district heating. So it doesn't mean the application of central heating, one boiler in the multi-apartment building, but in only one. Or I don't know, like in one school, etc. So this is not a district heating. District heating is a well-connected system of the pipes throughout several, as well as multi-apartment buildings. Then maybe there will be some domestic housing, there will be some industrial facilities, hospitals, schools, whatever's nearby in the district. Everything is connected to the system and supplied heat from there. So this is kind of a bit, not to mix it with the central heating system. I have had quite experience with it. So here we see on the picture clearly that we have one energy center. So it can be, I don't know, for instance, combined heat and power plant, which produces the heat, and then with the pipe network, we distribute it to industrial facility, hospital, multi-apartment buildings, domestic housing, etc. Moving to the next slide. So here, this is actually quite interesting part. I would say it's from the Energy Efficiency Directive. And as I discussed before, it also encourages the use of co-generated heat or high-efficient cogeneration, and then renewables and waste heat in district heating and cooling. And the definition of the efficient district heating and cooling itself, which is provided, says the following, that you can, the system qualifies as an efficient district heating or cooling system if it meets at least one of the following criteria. So first, if it uses at least 50% of renewable energy, and it can be the biomass, solar thermal, geothermal, biogas. Then if it uses at least 50% waste heat, and waste heat is usually the heat that otherwise would be wasted, but you are finding a different application for it rather than to waste, for instance, from the industrial processes. Because we can actually recover the heat from the industrial processes, and there is like really high temperature processes going in the arc furnaces, blunt furnaces, in all industrial processes. And then we have the third option. So you can use at least 75% of co-generated heat, and you also the system also qualifies for efficient district heating and cooling system. And the last option, so we can combine all of these mentioned above, and use at least 50% in combination of either renewables, waste heat, or co-generated heat, and then also the system qualifies as efficient district heating and cooling system. So for instance, just to give you maybe one example, if we say that we have district heating system that uses 25% of, I don't know, co-generated heat, and then 15% of renewables, and then we have 10 left, 10% of waste heat, then it definitely qualifies as an efficient district heating system. Okay, now we also move forward. I hope it was all clear until this, and I'll try to explain also high efficient cogeneration, which is defined in the Energy Efficiency Directive, and basically high efficient cogeneration refers to the to those systems that simultaneously, is usually, like, this is a very basic definition of cogeneration in general, that it simultaneously produces heat and electricity, but in high efficient cogeneration case, it has an emphasis on maximizing energy efficiency compared to separate production of heat and electricity. And then the Energy Efficiency Directive defines and provides criteria for determining whether the cogeneration qualifies as high efficiency or not. It's not as simple as it was for the efficient district heating and cooling, but I'll try to explain also maybe easily, kind of. So to calculate if the system is like if it's high efficiency cogeneration, we primarily need to assess the primary energy savings that the system achieves in comparison to when it would have had if it produced heat and electricity separately. And then cogeneration system qualifies as high efficiency if it achieves at least 10% of primary energy savings compared to the separate production of heat and electricity. So basically, this is the very general brief definition how you can assume if the system is belongs to the high efficiency cogeneration or not. And then we move forward with another provision of the Energy Efficiency Directive, which actually gives us two main clauses regarding the heating and cooling regulation. And we have here comprehensive assessments and then cost-benefit analysis. Basically, the comprehensive assessment, to explain easily, is that just you know, as a contracting party authority, you do some research, assessment, and you evaluate how much potential there is for high efficiency cogeneration and then efficient district heating and cooling in your country. So you evaluate the places where you could, you know, like apply either of these, or then, you know, like if there is a potential for the renewables integration into district heating and cooling, or the potential of, you know, recovering the waste heat from the industrial processes and then its application into district heating and cooling systems, etc. And then usually contracting parties should conduct these comprehensive assessments every 5 years. So once you do it, then it shall be followed by the logical measures and policies. So if your assessment shows that you have a high potential for actually utilizing waste heat from the industrial processes, or as I already mentioned, integrating renewables in the heating and cooling. So you maybe have like some geothermal potential that was like untapped before, and like, you know, so basically you have to set the policies and measures which will ensure, as it was in the case of NECPs, which will ensure that you can really implement the kind of recommendations from this comprehensive assessment that you've conducted. The second part is cost-benefit analysis, and it's kind of like as usual with every kind of project implementation. So, you know, like you assess the costs and the benefits of the project, and then if the benefits outweigh the costs, then you are like, you know, incentivized to implement the project. So basically, the cost-benefit analysis in case of heating and cooling identifies the most resource and cost-efficient solutions for meeting the heating and cooling needs. And if the comprehensive assessment that I mentioned above and the cost-benefit analysis reveal that the benefits of high-efficiency cogeneration or efficient district heating and cooling really exceed the costs, then contracting parties must take adequate measures to support the development of such systems, including the application of waste heat and renewable energy sources integration into efficient district heating and cooling systems. moving forward, now we are actually coming to another directive, as I've already mentioned, the Renewables Directive, which also regulates heating and cooling sector. Basically, we have two main articles in Renewables Directive on heating and cooling. One is basically focused around the heating and cooling in general. And then we have the second article, Article 24, which focuses only on district heating and cooling systems. So here, actually, I will, as I already moved to the district heating part, and I talked and discussed about the 1.3% targets that is set for heating and cooling in general, for increasing the share of renewables in heating and cooling in general. Here we have different targets from that for district heating and cooling systems. And the target here says that the share of renewables and the waste heat in district heating and cooling systems shall increase by at least 1 percentage point as an annual average, starting from such share available in contracting parties in the year 2020. So it's the kind of the same logic behind it. It's the provision allows you to, you know, like doesn't really increase by 1 exact point annually, but you can, as long as you reach the final target. And it also will be calculated, for instance, in 2020, if the contracting party had, I don't know, 25%, then adding 1% annually in 10 years will be like adding additional 10%. And then we will get like target for 2030, 35%. So as long as you have 35% share of renewables and waste heat in your district heating and cooling at the end of 2030, you are like, you have fulfilled the provision from the directive and what you were obliged to do. Another aspect that is covered in the Renewables Directive, actually, so basically the Renewables Directive is also part of the Clean Energy for All Europeans package, and which was to like a large extent in comparison to the previous legislations, so consumer oriented, and the consumer rights are guaranteed through various regulatory and policy frameworks, and then the consumers are also put in the center of energy transition, actually, and there are, like, you know, the provisions regarding the energy community, self-consumers, etc. But with regard to the heating and cooling, the consumers have been also granted with a number of rights, and I will start with the right to disconnect. So basically, if you are the customer of inefficient district heating and cooling system, you have the right to disconnect from this system, and you can like terminate or modify the contract. Now, this is really the part for the regulator, basically later to define. But you are free to do so, and this allows you to seek the alternative sources for your district heating and cooling, basically more efficient one, or the ones that are powered through renewable energy or waste heat, etc. So as long as you are choosing the more sustainable, decarbonized source of heating for your home, you are free, even though like you might have a contract with the current supplier, you are free to disconnect. Another thing is rights to information, which is like very general, that all the customers should have access to the information regarding the energy performance, and also renewable energy share in their district heating and cooling systems. And this information should be provided through suppliers, maybe websites, also the bills, or upon request from the consumer's side. Then we have right to transparency, and here as well, if a district heating operator refuses to connect a supplier or customer, they must provide clear reasons for the refusal and outline the conditions that are needed for connection. So basically, if, for instance, you are denied your right to disconnect, then you have the full right to get the full reasoning and the justification why you've been denied the right to disconnect. Or for instance, there is a new supplier of heating or cooling, and they want to connect to the system and they are denied this connection. They are also eligible to receiving the full transparent information with justified reasons why the denial. And then we have right to non-discriminatory access, and consumers here are entitled to non-discriminatory access to suppliers of energy from renewable energy sources and waste heat, which must be offered by operators of district heating and cooling systems. So you can choose your own supplier. This basically means that your system operator should allow you, so it should have some regulation or rules in place which will allow the consumer to choose its supplier of heating and cooling. Okay, to move forward. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, I will show you some statistical data and information with regard to the energy community contracting parties. And here on this slide, I have included all the contracting parties. So we have 9 contracting parties, Western Balkans 6, and then Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. So those that are in black, so this is Albania, Georgia, and Montenegro. These contracting parties doesn't have district heating systems in place. So when I only say district heating because there is nowhere district cooling system as such in our contracting parties. So there are none, and in the rest of the 6. So from Western Balkans we have district heatings in Bosnia and Herzegovina, quite developed, 33 of them. So in 33 districts. Then we have relatively small number in Kosovo and North Macedonia, 3 and 4, and the highest number in Western Balkans comes for Serbia. It's 58, and then if we look at Moldova and Ukraine, Moldova has 12 district heating systems, and in Ukraine we do not know actually the exact number, but we know that it's around 1,400, so it's really huge. So Ukraine has of course the country is huge itself, but Ukraine has really the most well-developed district heating systems among the energy community contracting parties. So when we look at this slide, here I have put for the visualization the share of fuels in the energy mix in district heating in our contracting parties. As already mentioned, we have district heatings in only 6 of them, so that's why the countries here presented logically based on the previous slide. And what we can, and also like in the middle center of each of them, I have put the information about the share of combined heat and power plants in district heating, so cogeneration. If we look basically Kosovo, because it's a really like 90% reliant on coal for its district heating systems, which is a really kind of like challenging situation. But when we also look at the share of cogeneration in district heating, we see that it's 98% share, so it's still good. So in comparison to what it would be if they were not using combined heat and power plants, and if they would produced electricity from using fuel one time and then using another fuel for producing heat. It's all like still very bad for the the emissions, the air quality, the but kind of the share of cogeneration still at least a bit makes Kosovo a bit promising in this sense. Then we have I will first discuss those where we have like the basically a dominant one fuel for district heating. So then we have in Balkans as well, North Macedonia, and in North Macedonia, the district heating systems are not almost, actually 100% dependent on natural gas. And here also the share of cogeneration is not so bad. It's like 56.1%. And then we have also Moldova, where the district heating systems are all like 99.7% dependent on the natural gas. And then we have a very marginal number of renewables and biofuels there in Moldova. And then we have here as well the very good number of share for cogeneration, which is like 79.8%. Then coming back to Balkans, we have Bosnia-Herzegovina and Serbia with a bit of the diversified energy mix. So in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the dominant is coal, but really following in its steps natural gas. Then we have actually quite good number of renewables and biofuels, but we should say here that behind these renewables and biofuels, we mean biomass. And actually, it's a bit complicated now with regard to the sustainable biomass, because this renewables directive actually introduced sustainability criteria for the biomass. So not all biomass is qualified as renewables. So they have some very specific criteria to meet in order for you to count your biomass as really sustainable and renewable fuel. So it's a bit complicated now, but here it says that most of the renewables part for the district heating in Bosnia and Herzegovina comes for the biomass, which actually is not with today's standards the sustainable biomass. And then in Serbia, we have now around, I think, 75% comes for the natural gas, and then we have also coal, small number of petroleum products, and then really marginal number of renewables and biofuels. And last, Ukraine in this case. So in Ukraine also natural gas is dominant. Then we have coal, really marginal petroleum products, and some others. And in Serbia and Ukraine, the share of cogeneration is relatively low, also less than 50% in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Okay, and then in the last two slides, actually, I put together some actual projects that are in district heating in energy community. Well, some of them actually, I would say the not project, but district heating, which is functioning on the renewables already in energy community, and some are the projects in the phase of feasibility study or etc. So the three from here in North Macedonia, Serbia, Ukraine, we have already operating geothermal project, very quite limited in the capacity, but still it's a really good start to including the diversified sources of renewables into district heating mix. As we have seen, it's really heavily dominated by the fossil fuels so far. So in North Macedonia, we have the Kochen geothermal field, which is the important energy source for the local county there, and it satisfies the energy needs of 18 hectares of greenhouses, low temperature industries, as well as to some extent home heating. Then we have in Serbia the municipality of Bogatic, which uses geothermal energy to heat 8 public buildings. In Ukraine, 2 geothermal plants in the village of Medvedivka and the village of Kosino at Zakarpattia Oblast. And in Bosnia-Herzegovina, this is actually the project, not in place. They started so district heating company Sarajevo launched a geothermal energy research project. And on the last slide here, I put some regarding the solar thermal projects in our contracting parties. So, for instance, in Serbia, city of Pančevo is home to the Balkan region's largest solar thermal project, and it basically provides sanitary hot water by using solar energy. And solar thermal system has capacity of 1 megawatt and an annual output of 900 megawatt hour. In Kosovo, we have Solar for Kosovo district heating project. This is project, not existing one, and the new capacity shall ensure the access to the central heating system for around like 40,000 citizens, and it will replace their individual heating systems. And in North Macedonia, also it's quite new. We have solar district heating Bitola project. Actually, this is kind of like two-phase project. First, they started, the building the district heating system, which was never there because there is a thermal power plants and several units at Bitola. And then they decided to maybe build, in addition, the solar thermal plants somewhere near, and then connect this solar thermal to the new district heating system. So this is also like under kind of the research feasibility phase, the Bitola project in North Macedonia. So yes, basically this is the information that I wanted to provide you with, some real examples. How it's advancing in our contracting parties. I'd say it's slow, but it's really quite like, getting its pace relatively now, and I think there is increased interest from as well as financial institutions, donors, etc., and also from the government side to really contribute to the decarbonization of their heating systems, and specifically the district heating is in the center of attention in our contracting parties, rather than, of course, there are some projects for individual heating units, like I don't know, for instance, like to replace the biomass boilers with efficient ones, etc. But the district heating is really taking up the main space of attention, I would say. Yes, that was it. I hope that it was informative for you, and I didn't really overcomplicate the things. So now feel free if you have any questions to ask, and I would be happy to answer.
Yes, thank you, Mariam. And dear participants, if you have questions, please write them in the chat. This is your last chance to ask your questions to Mariam, or raise your hand and we can unmute you. No, don't feel shy. Please ask your questions. No questions. I think it was very well explained, Mariam, so that there are no questions from the audience. In this case,
hope so.
Yes, thank you. In this case, let me thank our colleagues from the Energy Community Secretariat for hosting today's session. Thank you, Borko. Thank you, Mariam. It's been very interesting, and I do hope that the participants received a lot of interesting information. And of course, these presentations that will be later uploaded to the website of the event, so everybody will have an opportunity to look through them again and use it for their further education or any other purpose. Thank you. With this, I think we are finishing the, so to say, theoretical part of our 3 days. We don't have any more presentations left. The only important thing that we have left, in fact, this is the quiz. And I'm going to explain a little bit later what are we going to do with the quiz and how. But before that, I think everybody needs 5 minutes break. So I would suggest that we all break for 5 minutes It's depending on in which country you are, it's 19:40 in Tbilisi, Georgia. So we are back in 5 minutes then. Esther, would you like to add something before the break?
No, I'm just at 45. Let's do it. Let's run it
Yes,
up.
45 indeed. Thank you, Mariam. Thank you, Borko, and see you all in 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good luck with the quiz, all the participants.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Also, good luck.